Hello and welcome to Python Programming Complete course. This is part 23, MySQL with Python. In this video, we will discuss how to connect to a MySQL database from within a Python script, retrieve data from MySQL database into Python for analysis, and execute queries from Python application. Python supports various databases like SQLite, MySQL, Oracle, Sybase, SQL Server, and many more. The Python standard for database interface is the Python DB API, and one of the most popular database is MySQL, on which we will be working. To work with a database like we are going to work with MySQL database, you have to install it on your system. So using the official site, you can download MySQL Server. You will be directed through a series of steps. Follow those steps and you will be able to install it on your system. You also need MySQL connector to connect to the database when you are working with Python. So if you have pip or conda already installed on your system, you can install the connector easily giving the command on the command prompt. When we talk about connector, a connector is a piece of software that allows an application to connect and interact with the database system. So if we are using a database and we want to use that database in Python, so we'll need a connector or a driver which can interact between the database and the application. But that is a Python. This is the MySQL command line client. Here we will first create a database and a table which we'll use in Python. So once you open the command line client, you just have to provide your password. You'll be asked to provide a password when you are installing the server. You can log into the command line client, and once you are ready, you can see the databases, what databases are available. Here we are going to create a database. So I'm giving the command create database and the name of the database. This is the name and it's been created. Now to see the database, I can give the command show databases. All the information is available. This is the database which I have created, and this I will be using in my program. Once we have created a database, we have to use it. The name is my database has been changed. Now inside this database we will create a table. Now so my table will be, I'll give the command create table. The name is book, and what I want is the ID, which will be int, comma, I want a title for the book which will be of varchar type, and it will be 50. Next I want the published year in which the book is published, and it is of year type, and it will be for like 2000 or 2001, and the genre which is of varchar, and it is 30. This is my table will have all these columns, and once I am done, I'll close this and put a semicolon. It's been created. If you want to see your table, you can see the description. So here you have these fields: ID, title, published year, and this is the type, and you can provide a primary key, null, different constraints can be given. We are not going into all those details as of now. Let's go to VS Code and see how we can establish a connection and insert and update or perform all the CRUD operation on the table which we have created. The first step in interacting with the MySQL server is to establish a connection. For that, to establish a connection, first of all, we'll import the connector package. So we'll give the command import mysql.connector, and you can either use it as it is in your program, or you can give a name to it, like I'm giving sqt, and this sqt alias name I'll be using in the rest of the code. We have imported the connector. Then using the connect function of the MySQL connector package, we'll open a connection. First of all, we'll have an object. We'll create a connection object which controls the connection to the database and represents a unique session. So we have to, like we provide a name or the variable name, here we will provide a connection object. The name I am giving is obj connection object, and since we have given an alias name sqt, you can also write mysql.connector if you have not given that name. We'll provide the arguments. Now it will take 4 parameters: host, user, password, and the database. Now here the database is optional, so we'll start writing host is the host which you have created while downloading it, and most probably it's local host. The user, it is root. You can also see what is the host and the user on your command line client if you forget that. Then the password. Now passwd is which you have provided at the time of installing it, and then the database, which is optional. If you are creating the database here, then you will not provide it. Since we have already created the database, we will write the name of the database, and the database which we did create was my database. And so we have written this. I forgot to write dot connect, since we are passing these parameters to the connect function of the package, so it will establish a connection. Let's see whether a connection has been established or not. Let me print this c underscore object, save, and let's execute. So you could see this MySQL connector.connection, and this is the connection object, and a connection has been created. Once you are done working with your database, it's a good practice to disconnect from the server and close the session and clean up the environment. For that, we use the connection object. C obj is the connection object dot close function. It will close the session. It will disconnect from the server. Let's save and execute. Nothing will come. It will just close the connection, and that's it. Next, we need to prepare a cursor object using the cursor method. Now, what is a cursor? A SQL cursor is a database object that retrieves data from the result set one row at a time. So the result set, the query which we execute, we get a burst of the result. We get it in the form of a result set, and if we want to print it one row at a time, we need to create a cursor. The MySQL connector, it provides MySQL Cursor class, and we create an instance of that class which is also called a cursor. So the cursor object, how to create a cursor object, you need to provide a, you can give any name here, let's say cursor, let's say my cursor n. This is equal to the connection object which we have created. We'll use that to interact with the SQL server. So the connection which we have created, and together that with that we'll use the cursor object to talk to the server. The connection object is this dot, we'll use the cursor method and enter. So a cursor, my cursor, has been created. To execute a query, we need to send it to the execute function in a string format. So what we will do, using the my cursor dot execute, we will execute the query. Now just now our table does not contain any data, so what we can say, we can say show databases, show tables. Let's show the tables from this database. Whatever table are present in the database, we can show them in. So it will come in the cursor object, it will retrieve the data in the result set. To print it one at a time, we need a for loop. We say for x in my cursor, retrieve one data at a time, one row at a time, and we'll print it somewhat in this manner. Let's see. There is only one table in my database, so it is printing that table. If I write DESC, the name of my table was book, so it will show me these are the columns, the data type from this particular table. So till now what we have done is we have used import to import the package required for the database programming. We have opened a connection using the connect function. Then we have created a cursor instance. After that we have executed a query using the execute function, and then we have extracted the data from the result set which we got, and finally we have closed the database and we have ended the session. Let us now how we can insert data into the table which we have created. For that we will use the insert command. So let us use a variable, and in this we will give the query insert into the name of the table which we have created, values. The first one was ID 100, comma the name of the book Harry Potter, comma year published, comma it is fiction, and we are done. This is what we want to insert into our table. This is the data. So directly writing the query here inside the execute function, we have stored it in a variable data, and we will provide data to my execute function. When we are making changes to the table or the database here, what we want is we want to commit that changes, or we want to make that changes permanent. So for that we use the commit function. So use the connection which you have created dot the commit function, it will save the changes, and then you can go to the client or command line client, or you can print it here also. Let's save and execute. So you can see my data has been inserted into a table and we have to show it here. So for that we'll again use the cursor, my cursor dot execute. Here we will write the query select asterisk from book. This is the table which we have created, and then let's execute and see. You could see the data being added since it was run again. So first time it was added, then again it's been inserted into the table. You can update existing records in a data table by using the update statement. So we have some data in place like we did inserted it earlier. Update, we'll give the update statement. Update, the name of the table is book. We want to set the we have the year of publishing as published. Publish is equal to 0110. For which record? For that we will provide where title equals to the title which we gave was Harry Potter and Hardy Boys, and let's save and execute. Let's see. You could see the year has been changed to 2010. Similarly for the other records also we can change. Say for Jungle Book we want to make it 1997, then we can do that as well. Let's change it and see. It's Jungle Book and the year is, we want to change it to 1997. Let's save and execute. You could change, you could see the change. It's 1997 now instead of 2003. Similarly, using the delete statement we can delete data from the table. So if we write data, we write the query first, then we'll execute and commit and then show the record. Data we want to delete from the table where say the title is equal to Hardy Boys. We want to delete this particular record. Once we have given the query, we'll use the execute function, we'll commit and save the changes. We are again executing this query. We are selecting everything, and then using the cursor we are printing it one line at a time. Now you could see this Hardy Boys record, it's been removed and we have only 2 record in our table. Now that we know how to insert, update and delete the data from the table from the Python program, and we are also using the select statement to read the data, let's see how we can retrieve the data from the result set of the query in the cursor object, and using the different fetch method, that is to fetch all the record or some record or a few selected record from the result set. For that we have different methods, and using the cursor object we can use those methods. For example, we have established a connection, the cursor is already in place, and we have used the execute function to execute this query. And if we print, and let's see the result of this, you could see all these records being printed. So if I use a method fetch all, it will display all the records from the record set like we have over here. If I say data equals to my cursor dot fetch all, it will fetch all the records. It will have no difference in the output. Let's see, we have to use, I forgot to use data here. We are storing the result in data this time. No change in the records, the number of records. If I use fetch 1 instead of all, if I use fetch 1, then this method will return only the first record from the result set. Let's save and see. You could see only one record, that is the first record from the result set. If I write fetch many, if I use the fetch many method and provide how many records I want to see, I want to see 3 records from the result set, you could see only the first 3 records being displayed from the result set. Now when we talk about retrieving the record, I am using the simple select query to retrieve the data. You can use where for a condition, you can use order by, group by, having all those can be used while executing the query. This is just an overview of how we can connect to the server and then use the tables at the database from within the Python itself. So in this video, we have discussed how to establish a connection between Python and MySQL database and execute SQL queries from Python application. Hope you found the information shared in this video useful. Stay tuned for upcoming videos and thank you for watching.